Boom. What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to yet another episode of the Fight Maniac podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. I really appreciate all of you. As always, if you want to support your boy, don't forget, go ahead and leave a like, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment. Let me know how you guys are feeling in this beautiful start of the week. It is fight week. It is finally here. The long anticipated, the massively hype UFC Noche for UFC 306. Obviously, if you've been living under a rock, you know, this is at the Sphere in Las Vegas. So, you know, there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of promises being made by Dana White that this is going to be one of the best nights in combat sports history, blah, blah, blah. You know, you heard all of that, right? And just to start off, I want to say, looking at the card itself, it has potential, especially the main card. The prelims are okay, but the main card definitely has potential to be amazing, to produce some bangers, some classics. I'm very excited for a few of these. We'll go over them, obviously. But, you know, as far as what Dana White is calling it, the greatest night in combat sports history, he's meaning the production side. That's what he's mainly talking about. And that's what a lot of people get twisted, right? This is not even, for example, this is not even close to UFC 300 as far as star power, you know, big names fighting, big hype fights. So it's not even close to that level. But I mean, UFC 300 was also like, it was 100 events, so they had to put on amazing fights overall, right? I feel like for the purists, that was, you know, that UFC 300 for the MMA purists, the real fans. Now, for more, I don't want to say casuals, but for more people that are, you know, more interested in the viewing experience rather than the fighting going on, this is the night for sure. What Dana White is looking to do, you know, if you don't know, he's going head to head with Canelo. So what they're hoping is breaking that pay-per-view. So we'll see if he's able to, you know, on the night. That's tough because if you don't know, Canelo usually always fights in September for Mexican Independence Day. So that's always his night. He always does amazing pay-per-views. Obviously, he's Canelo. He's the face of boxing, right? But yeah, they decided to go head-to-head, toe-to-toe with Canelo Alvarez. So it's going to be interesting to look at the numbers, you know, and I wish we will get some numbers right away as far as pay-per-view, especially for boxing, because I feel like we never get, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, the numbers that Jake Paul are doing and the numbers that Canelo does, all those people in boxing, but we never really get to see the real pay-per-view buys. Even with the UFC, right? And even if you also take into consideration the people that are pirating that are watching the fight illegally, right? That are not paying for the event, that are just watching it illegally. That's, you know, that adds a big number, in my opinion, to the pay-per-view numbers. I mean, I would go as far as saying maybe even double it, right? And I saw Dana White talking about this topic a little bit, and I'll get on the fights here in a second, I promise. But I just thought it was funny that he was very cocky, very confidently saying that, oh yeah, we do all this stuff to prevent, you know, people watching illegally, blah, 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 and we prosecute people and shit. And first thing I did immediately is go down to the comments and just the amount of people saying, bro, I've never paid for a fight. I always watch him illegally. You know, they stream him live on TikTok, on YouTube. You know, if you really, I'm not going to condone anything, but if you really wanting to not pay for a fight and you want to be at home watching it and not go to a sports bar or something, there's ways to do it. That's all I'm going to say. There's ways to do it, right? I personally, if I'm not going to pay for a fight, I go to a sports bar and I watch it. But, you know, don't go to like a Buffalo Wild Wings. That's trash, right? Go to a nice sports bar, you know, get some homies together, make some bets, you know, have some drinks. It's always fun. It's always fun. But yeah, I thought it was funny that he was saying that when I don't think it's true. Also, you know, just to get off this topic, and I think what they are also talking about is businesses and bars and restaurants streaming the fights illegally. I think those are the people that they really go against, they prosecute those people. Because if you don't know, and this might not be true for everybody, but what I learned, somebody that owns a restaurant told me that if they want to play a UFC fight or a pay-per-view, they don't pay the normal price that you and me pay, which is I think is like $80, which is just went up, which is crazy expensive if you ask me, right? They don't pay that and then just play it in all the no. They actually go based on, I don't know what the price is, but they go based on the amount of people that fits in that establishment, right? So if a bar that fits whatever 300 people want to buy the pay-per-view, they don't pay the $80 fee. They pay whatever the UFC charges for 300 people viewing the fights, which I don't know if it's the 80 times 300. I'm assuming they get a little discount, but it's still crazy, right? But yeah, it's an interesting topic that I thought I'd touch on because I just thought it was funny. But yeah, man, getting on to the fights. Obviously, we have the main event of the evening, right? Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili, right? That's how you say it, Dvalishvili, yeah. I'm very excited for this fight. Very, very excited. You know, I was someone that if you kind of watch some of our older videos, which I don't recommend, by the way, because they're trash, I was always very critical on O'Malley because we just, you know, obviously very cocky, very popular before he was even ranked. He was highly, highly popular. And even if he would lose a fight, or not lose a fight, but for example, the Chito fight, the first one, he had excuses for that. And then there was one no contest. We had an eye poke against, I think it was Pedro Munoz, I want to say. Or I think it was somebody else. But, you know, he was also being cocky, even though that fight, it was not really going his way the first round. It was pretty even. It wasn't going his way. He wasn't losing, but it was just an even fight. It was just nothing really happening. Pretty uneventful first round. But then he gets on and gets, you know, talks shit and gets cocky, which is, you know, obviously it involves some criticism, right? But I will have to say, right, from the Petr Yan fight till after, you know, the fights he's had after that, boy, has he looked good. He's looked so fucking good, right? And what we know about O'Malley is that he had good striking. That's pretty much all we knew beforehand, right? But, you know, against the Chito fight, the second one, in that Petr Yan fight, we learned that he also has cardio. I mean, he can go all 5 rounds, right? Which is what he did with Chito. We know that he is really, really fucking good at pretty much staying on his feet, right? Not getting taken down, even though the Chito fight didn't really involve much wrestling, but you can see he's good at stuffing those takedowns. You saw that against Aljamain Sterling, even though also Sean was injured, right? Going to that fight, he said that he had a broken rib, so he didn't really do any wrestling for that fight, right? And even then, Aljo couldn't take him down. I think he tried, once or twice. Again, the fight was shorter, so I don't take a lot from that fight, but I take the fact that Aljo couldn't really take him down in the first round, right? Which is what Aljo especially, that's what he does. He takes you down, he submits you. He's amazing at that. So the fact that he got through that is amazing. And the fact that in the Chito fight, he showed precision, man. He showed speed. He showed just an overall great MMA fighting game. And I think that says a lot. You know, that definitely says a lot for someone like O'Malley. Amazing counter striker, amazing precision. Another thing I saw in that Chito fight was that he had really, really good feints. He was just... He would throw a feint, and by the time Chito was going back, like he would go back or try to dodge a feint. By the time he was going back to position, O'Malley was already striking him with something, with a jab or with the hook. And I think that's good. That's really, really good. You know, obviously, I hope Merab watched that fight and kind of realized that. And I hope that Merab is good at not reacting to those feints, because that's what O'Malley is looking for, is reacting to those feints. And when you react and you go back, that's when he pops you. His understanding of distance and footwork is top notch. It's top notch. It's world class. He's a champ for a reason, guys. Okay, O'Malley. You know, Joe Rogan said it best. You know, look past the hair, look past the goofiness, right, and just look at him as a fighter, as a striker. And he is world class. He is phenomenal. And mixes it up really good with some spinning shit here and there. You know, if he's up in the fight, he'll probably try to do some spinning shit, some flashy shit. But he mixes up kicks really, really good. One thing I want to see from O'Malley is mixing up some more knees, especially against someone like Merab, who we know is definitely gonna try to take him down. Let that knee go a little more. You know what I mean? And I'll be surprised if he. Well, actually, I want to see it more. I say that, but also he had that one amazing knee against Chito, who I don't know. For the love of God, I don't know how Chito did not go down after that. I mean, that was a solid knee to the fucking dome, and Chito didn't go down. So he's good at that, but I want to see more of it because look, he had success there. If he would have done that a couple of times, maybe he takes Chito to the floor. Maybe he drops him, So he's good at mixing it up, right? But I want to say someone against Merab, you definitely want to mix it up a little more. If you're just sticking to just jab and kicks, Merab will probably take him down, right? But that being said, Merab is also really, really fucking good at striking. So, this is a very evenly matched fight. Merab, I would say the tools that he has they pair up really good against O'Malley. This is going to be a good fight. I promise you that from the get-go, right? Both fighters have good cardio. That shouldn't be an issue. I do see this fight going the distance, but I'll give my official prediction here in a little bit. And one thing I do see when looking at Merab's record is he's really not a finisher, right? He has one KO win in his whole UFC career, right? I'm not looking past before that. But even before that, he has multiple decisions. But in the UFC, he's had all decision wins and just one KO and 2 losses earlier in his career. Which I think is crazy that he debuted in the UFC at UFC in a fight night in 2017, and then he lost that one, and then he lost the next one. So his career started off, in a rocky situation where he had 2 L's back to back. So, that wasn't good back then, obviously, but since then he's been completely undefeated. Another little stat that I want to throw out there for Merab, which is scary, is that his last 3 wins have been against former champs, right? You have Petr Yan, you have Jose Aldo, and you have Henry Cejudo, which to me was the most impressive one of them all, because we all know Cejudo, right? Olympic wrestler, amazing guy, can take you down, can stuff takedowns, but Merab took him down at will throughout the entire fight. So if he did that to Cejudo, I guarantee you, Merab gets a takedown within the first 2 rounds. I mean, even if O'Malley stuffs one, he has to try again. I think that's what a lot of people don't do. I think a lot of people, when they shoot for a takedown, if it gets stuffed, they don't try again for a while, right? I think Merab really needs to have that pressure on O'Malley, and that helps him. I talked about that in the last episode. I said that whenever you at least attempt a takedown, even if it gets stuffed, right? Now O'Malley, your opponent, is thinking of the takedown, right? So now he's going to be a little bit more cautious on his striking. He's not going to let his guard up that much. He probably won't throw as much spinning shit, right? If Merab takes him down, I guarantee you O'Malley will not do a lot of flashy shit. He's going to stick to the basics, jab him, kick him, and I think that's how I see that fight playing out. Now, I do see this fight maybe going to a decision, but I guess if I gotta give you my official prediction for this fight, it's tough, man. It's so tough. Because part of me wants to say, well, O'Malley is on this path, right, to becoming a superstar, to becoming a long reigning champ. But against a guy like Merab, it's gonna be a big fucking test. Big test. Either way, my official prediction is gonna be Sean O'Malley. Hear me out. By 3rd round TKO. Yeah, that's my official prediction. However, if it goes to decision, I can also see it being a really close fight, like even close to a draw. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a draw, even though if you bet a draw, you become a fucking millionaire. But I can see this fight being very, very close, potentially a split decision. But even in a split, I still see O'Malley taking the dub here. So either way, it should be a fantastic, phenomenal fight that I'm very, very excited for. I mean, I cannot wait. I cannot stress this enough. I cannot wait for this fight. Especially because if O'Malley wins, there's a lot of opponents down the line that I want to see him fight. Like I want to see him fight Umar. I think that will be a crazy fight. And if O'Malley gets past Merab with his wrestling, right? Umar is right up there with the wrestling too, bro. So, but Umar, I would argue, is a better striker than Merab as well. So Umar, a little bit more well-rounded than Merab. So that's the real boogeyman in that division. Boogeyman. That is the real boogeyman of that division is Umar. Before the Umar fight versus Sandhagen, I was really, really looking forward to Sandhagen versus O'Malley. I think that would have been a phenomenal striking masterclass. It would have been perfect. But obviously, Sandhagen couldn't get past Umar. So he, in my opinion, is next in line, right? Whoever this guy wins, if Merab wins, I don't think O'Malley should get an immediate rematch, all right? I don't think he has defended the belt enough, right? So who knows if Merab is able to pull the dub, which it could happen. I'm not ruling him out. I'm not ruling Merab out, right? I just gave him my prediction, but I am not ruling Umar out. Merab. That would be a crazy fight too, Merab versus Umar, because that would be a phenomenal grappling, and also a good striking fight. So really looking forward to those outcomes. But yeah, if Merab wins, I don't think O'Malley should get an immediate rematch, even though I think that's what he's going to call for because he's the champ, and he's cocky. And another thing I see is O'Malley making not excuses, but if he does get beat by Merab, right? Everyone has excuses. Everyone. One very interesting thing, and I'll move on to the next fight. One very interesting thing for me is that after the Chito fight, Chito was saying that O'Malley felt very slippery, very slimy, and he said that has to do something with his hair, right? He said that because Chito also had braided hair, but he said that he gets his braids by someone from the UFC, right? Like a stylist, I guess, from the UFC, or like a makeup girl from the UFC. But then Sean O'Malley gets him done by his wife. I see them all the time in the embeddeds, in the vlogs. He's always getting his hair done by his wife before the fight. So, I'm not gonna say cheating or anything, but that could have an impact on the wrestling, right? On the grappling. If Merab wants to grab him and take him down, it's going to be interesting to see if he can get a hold of him, right? Or it's going to prove kind of what Chito said is right? Which I'm not saying Chito is making excuses, but I definitely see something like that kind of happening. It's interesting to me, though, if the UFC, how does the UFC take that? Do they look at that fight? Do they look at Chito's comment and do they take it seriously, and do they in quote unquote investigate? Because in my opinion, it would be illegal if you're using something on your hair that then when you sweat, it drips down to your head, to your shoulders, so that someone cannot get a hold of you, right? Because if that is true, if it's very strategic, that could be a problem. That could be, an illegal problem, right? But again, is the UFC taking any of that seriously? I don't think so, because I do think the fighters get checked before getting into the octagon. I'm assuming they get checked at the locker room, and then we all see them when they're like this, before entering, and the cut man kind of just pats them down. But they don't check the hair, do they? I mean, I think they do. I think I see them go like this. If I'm not mistaken, I do see them grab their hand and go like this. But again, who knows, right? Who knows? I'm not taking that into consideration at all, of course. I think the fight against Chito was won fair and square. But I'm just saying, Chito did make that comment. And I don't think O'Malley ever addressed it or responded to that comment from Chito. So, moving on, though, that is my official prediction for that main event is Sugar Sean O'Malley I say third, right? Yeah, by third round TKO. That would be a good finish. That would be a really good finish to solidify himself as a true champ, right? Even though he's already defended the belt, so we're past that. But obviously, if you want to solidify as a champ, you have to defeat all these different fighters, right? He defeated a grappler in Aljo, even though, again, from that fight, we didn't get a lot. But then he defeated a striker in Chito, right? So now he's going against in my opinion, a much better grappler, right, and wrestler. So it's going to be a good test. And I'm hoping Merab also tests O'Malley. I'm hoping he just doesn't let him walk through him. Easier said than done, obviously. But I'm really hoping for a good fight, good exchanges back and forth, right? But yeah, I mean, you have champion versus number one contender. That is the bread and butter of the game, of the UFC. Is this really, really find out who really is the best fighter right now in that division. And that's what we're getting in this fight. So I'm super excited. Now, moving on. Oh, let me catch my breath here for a second. Moving on to the co-main. The co-main event. Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. The trilogy. 3 fights now. Well, this will be the third one. First fight, to give you guys a little recap, right? First fight, I think Valentina was winning that fight, if I'm not mistaken. She was having a lot of success on the feet, also on the wrestling. She took Alexa down a bunch of times. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but she definitely took her down a bunch. What cost her that fight was that she spinned. She threw a spinning, I think it was an elbow or a spinning back fist. And, going back to what we were talking about, Sean versus Merab, when you're spinning, you expose your back, you expose yourself for a takedown. And that's what Alexa did. She saw the opportunity beautifully. And I'm not taking anything away from Alexa. She won that fight, right? Even though she was down on the scorecards, she pulled off the win, which was fair and square. So I'm not taking anything away from her. So she saw the opportunity. She saw the mistake from Valentina. She trained for that mistake. She showed later on footage of her training that exact same move, right? And I always like that. I like to see that. And we saw that with Conor when he knocked out Jose Aldo. We saw that he trained for that exact same move. And that just shows to me that it wasn't luck. It wasn't like, because like I said, it's a square win for Alexa Grasso. She didn't get lucky. She had preparation, and she saw the window of opportunity opening up, and she took it, and she won from it. So I love to see that. There's a quote out there that, I forget the quote, but preparation beats skill, right? Every time. And I think we saw that day. Even though she was down, she saw the opportunity, she took it, and she won. So then we get, a huge upset. I wish I would have put money on that, but whatever. Huge upset. Then we get the rematch. In exactly a year ago, it was last year at the other Noche UFC for Mexican Independence Day, but that one was much smaller scale. It wasn't as big as the Sphere, obviously. That adds a whole nother aspect to the fight. But that second fight was much, much more competitive. I have to say that, right? We saw success from both of them. And one thing I will say is both of these ladies, right? Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko, both of these ladies are amazingly well-rounded. I mean, amazing striking from both of them. I do give the slight boxing advantage to Alexa Grasso. She has phenomenal boxing, Mexican hard boxing. I love to see that represent. But Valentina has amazing striking too. She trains in Thailand, so her Muay Thai is beautiful, and she mixes up the kicks, the knees to the body. They're nasty, bro. They're nasty. So both well-rounded, and then Valentina took her down. I think Alexa knocked her down at some point, if I'm not mistaken. So very, very close fight. I think what gave Alexa the draw at the end, because I think she was losing, but what gave her the draw at the end and allowed her to keep the belt was the fact that I don't remember if it was the last round, but she ended the fight much dominantly on top. And, she was on top. She was ground and pounding. And from previous fights, over the years, we've seen that kind of goes a long way, right? If the fight is a really close fight, but you end up the fight on top, pounding down, I think sometimes that changes the scorecards a lot. Obviously, she didn't get the win, but it was a split. And, people say a lot of things. I think many MMA heads, former fighters, podcasters, have it different ways. They have it 2-3 versus Valentina, 2-3 Alexa. So it was, when you get multiple people having different opinions, that's when you see that it was really a close fight. Because sometimes we get a draw, or sometimes we get a split going one way, and then we get everybody saying, wait, no, there's a fucking fly here. And then we get a lot of people saying, no, I saw it this way, and there's usually a consensus on who won the fight, right? Not this time. This time it was really a split draw, in my opinion. So the judges, I don't think they messed up that one right there. And it's such a tough job to do when you're scoring that fight. God, I'm telling you, right there at that moment, I would not wish to be a UFC judge because that is a tough one to judge. But it was a draw, and Alexa ended up keeping her belt, right? Even though it wasn't a win, but she gets to keep the belt. But that just tells me that for this fight, Valentina hopefully is going to be a little bit more prepared, and it's tough. It's tough to judge this fight as well, or to predict it as well, right? Because, I mean, yeah, it was so close, the last one. And like I said, Valentina was winning the first one, but did that mistake. And the second one was so close. So I'm expecting another close fight. My official prediction, though, if I have to be honest with you guys, is going to be Valentina Shevchenko by decision. I think this is a decision fight. I don't think it gets a finish. And what's there to say about Valentina, the Bullet? I mean, she is fucking phenomenal, and she's still on her prime. I mean, not really. She's 36, so she's a little bit over her prime, I would say. But I mean, long reigning champ for a long time. She had, I believe, 8 title defenses in a row. And her record, her strength of schedule, the females that she's beat, the big names that she's defeated, don't compare at all to Alexa's. I mean, she's obviously younger, and she entered the UFC later than her, and she hasn't fought that many huge names. But again, that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That doesn't matter. That's why this is the sport that we love and we love to see, because someone as dominant as Valentina can go in there and get submitted by Alexa, right? So it could happen. And it did happen, right? Someone as dominant as Valentina, who, looking at her record, I mean, it's so impressive, bro. So impressive. Jessica Andrade, fucking Talia Santos, Kaylin Carmenara, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, by the way, one of the GOATs in MMA fighting in female. So yeah, I'm excited for this one, but that will be my official prediction for the co-main. It is Valentina Shevchenko by decision, right? And who knows? Maybe we get it to another Brandon Moreno versus Figueiredo type of situation where we get 4 fights. I mean, if one of them is a draw, technically, if Valentina wins, there'll be 1-on-1, right? There'll be 1-1. So I don't know. It's usually the UFC doesn't like to do those type of fights, but if there's enough hype there, if they go again their separate ways and beat other people, and then they eventually clash again, right? Then the UFC will do it. That's what happened pretty much with the Brandon Moreno and Figueiredo fight. They said, well, I mean, we tried, right? We gave Moreno other fighters, we gave Davison other fighters, and they just ended up back at the top, both of them, right? They ended up clashing with each other, and it's inevitable. That's what happens. So I can see that happening for these 2 females right here. So either way, I'm very excited. And yeah, my official prediction will be Valentina by decision. So that's a fun one. Then another fight I'm very, very excited about is Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. The first, they were supposed to fight a few months ago. Obviously, Brian Ortega ended up getting sick the day of the fight and pulling out. And Diego Lopes proved to us that he is a fucking savage by taking probably, what I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but the most, how do I word this? The most short notice fight ever. The most short notice fight ever, right? Like, has there been ever anybody taking a fight in what, like 3 hours notice, right? That's kind of crazy if you ask me, right? But he showed heart, he showed passion, so I love that about the guy. He ended up facing Dan Ige, who I also don't take a lot away from that fight because it wasn't at featherweight. They ended up doing, I think, either at catchweight or at lightweight. So it wasn't at featherweight, so there's that. And yeah, it was just, it was one of those fights that are like, well, preparation goes out the window, right? Obviously, they're in shape and they're trained, but you're training for Brian Ortega, who's primarily a grappler. And then you get someone like Dan Ige, who did really good on the feet and primarily a striker, right? Well, he ended up clinching the dub by decision, so that's good. And now we're here. I will say, Brian Ortega, I'm a huge fan. For the longest, he was one of my favorite. Well, he still is, but he's been one of my favorite fighters to watch ever since, he had those fights with those wars with the Korean Zombie, with Max Holloway, with Volkanovski, which is also one of my favorite fights ever. And people forget that Brian Ortega knocked Volkanovski down. Yes, knocked him down with the punch, and then went on for the kill with the submission. And it was so tight, so tight. If you haven't seen that fight, please go back and watch it, because it's really that round. I think they got they either got fight of the year or round of the year, something like that. But that round was fucking insane. He ended up catching Alex with the choke, got out of it somehow by God's will. And then he ended up catching with a triangle, which is, if you don't know, Brian Ortega's nickname is T-City because that's his fucking specialty. It's the triangles. He's so nasty with them. And he ended up getting he ended up losing. And throughout the whole fight, Alex pretty much dominated, right? It wasn't a close fight at all. But Brian showed fucking heart, and he showed that, hey, even though I'm injured, I can win a fight any moment, right? And he showed that again against Yair Rodriguez, where he got knocked down in the first round, was losing the fight, and then ended up catching him and submitting him, right? Which is crazy. So it's crazy because, Rodriguez then obviously went on and losing against, that was before, sorry. He lost against Volk and then lost against Brian Ortega. But yeah, this is a pretty good fucking fight, man. And Diego Lopez, looking at him from his last couple of fights, I think on the experience scale, it's not a question that Brian has the more experience, right? You can kind of see that. Again, I don't take a lot from the Dan Ige fight, but what I did see is he needs to work on his defense a little bit. He needs to work on his striking a little bit. But on the feet, on the mat, he's good. He's a good fucking grappler as well. He's from Brazil, so that tells you something. He's from Brazil, but he has been training a lot in Mexico. I think he trains in the same camp as Alexa Grasso. So expect his boxing to be on point, right? But again, Brian is also a phenomenal boxer. Has a really good jab and has power. Even though he hasn't really shown it that much, he has power. And when he wants, he also has some flashy shit, some spinning shit, right? He hit the Korean Zombie with that crazy spinning elbow, which was one of my favorites ever. It's fucking insane. So yeah, I'm expecting this fight to be a banger. I'm also willing to say that this fight could take fight of the night, right? I think that's going to be super close. For my official prediction, though, I don't know. This is another tough one, bro. I'm trying to build my parlay here, right? Brian is also the slight underdog, so that's. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about that. Alexa is the slight favorite, and also O'Malley is also the favorite. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I think I saw at some point that Merab was the favorite, but then it must have changed. I don't know. They usually change those a few weeks before the fight. But Brian is the slight favorite, so I might put some money on him, and I might say Brian will take this dub. If he's able to capitalize on his good boxing and then, his jiu-jitsu, if the fight goes to the ground, good fucking luck for Diego, man, catching him with something. I'm expecting a little bit of back and forth, not only on the feet, but also on the ground. I think that's going to be super, super good fight. So I'm excited. So my official prediction for this is Brian Ortega. Let me say this. By third round submission. Yes. Third round submission. I think we get two really good rounds. I wish this fight was 5 rounds. I will say that. I wish this fight was 5 rounds. It may be. I don't know. Sometimes the UFC does crazy shit like that. But I actually don't know if it's a 5 round fight. If we go based on rules that we see every day, every single card, this should be a 3 round fight. But sometimes Dana likes to switch things up a little bit. So I could see this being a 5 round fight. So I'm not sure. So let me know in the comments what it is, because I actually don't know. But yeah, I can see Brian pulling off a late win in the 3rd round by submission. Or I could also see a Diego Lopez win by decision. I think being the younger guy, slightly less, weathered, slightly less, with less battle scars, you can call it, than Brian Ortega. More fresh, more, I would say more explosive also than Brian. Brian usually likes to be a little bit slower. I think Diego has that opportunity. If he explodes with something crazy and catches Brian with something, he definitely has that opportunity. But Brian Ortega is just tough to put away. It's tough to put away. Again, we saw that in the Volkanovski fight, and we saw that in the Yair Rodriguez fight. This dude never really gets put away. So I could see him losing by decision, though. So that should be fun. But yeah, my official prediction for that is Brian Ortega by 3rd round submission. Come on, guys. I'm giving you the parlays here, bro. You guys better bet on those. No, I'm kidding. Do not bet with my picks. Please do not. I am not responsible for any money you win or lose. But yeah, as I said earlier, looking at the rest of the card, it's pretty mid, right? Don't call me a casual, please. But it is pretty mid. We have Daniel Celuber versus Esteban Ribovics from Argentina. Mexican versus Argentina. That should be a good fight. Daniel, I know, is a pretty good fighter. He's primarily he is primarily, what is he? He's listed as a freestyle, and then Esteban is listed as a striker. So I'm assuming both guys pretty well rounded. But Daniel, coming off of 3 wins in a row, other than that, he's defeated in the UFC. He only has 1 loss against Trey Ogden. So that's a pretty good record, impressive record. And then Esteban has, let's see what his record is. Also 2 wins in a row, and then a loss against Loic Ratsabov. But other than that, also undefeated and pretty good record before the UFC as well, with 5 KOs in a row. Wow. 5 KOs in a row. So I wouldn't be surprised if this guy flashes us with a nice little KO all the way from Argentina. So I'm excited for that fight. Then we have Odie Osborne versus Ronaldo Rodriguez. That should be a good fight as well. A lot of lower weight classes in this card. We really don't have any heavies here at all. I mean, from the beginning, the whole card, we have bantamweight, flyweight, strawweight for females, lightweight. The heaviest fight here is a lightweight. That's fucking funny. Bantamweight also for the main fight on the prelims, which is Irina Aldana versus Norma Dumont. That also should be a pretty good fight. Aldana is coming off a win against Rosa, and before that, he did have that loss against Nunez, which was the one that Nunez retired on, which I think Nunez pretty much dominated the whole fight. But, a little bit of a rocky record. She has a couple of losses. She has 5 losses in the UFC. But other than that, she's got a pretty impressive record, a lot of wins, a lot of KOs. So that's good to see. It tells me that this fight might not go the distance, it will be phenomenal. And yeah, that's that for the main fight in the prelims. Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bohamondes. A lot of Mexicans here. I wonder why. I'm just kidding. Ignacio is from Chile, so that's good. A lot of South Americans as well. I like to see that. Argentina and now Chile. That's fucking great. Good record, impressive record. Just one loss recently against Ludovic Klein. And then other than that, he also has some KOs and some submissions on his record, so that's great. Also coming off the Contender. Wow, a lot of Contender guys here, huh? We have obviously Sean O'Malley, the main guy from the Contenders, but I think Esteban was also on the Contender. So a lot of Contender people here, which is great to see. And then the only other fight that kind of intrigues me here is Raul Rosas Jr. versus a dude from China with name Aurikling. Sorry, Aurikling. I don't know how to say his name. I'm so sorry, but Raul obviously being a massive star already, even though he's super young in the UFC, he only has a couple of fights. And he is a massive favorite. Wow, probably the biggest favorite of the card, right? So I mean, if you want to make some money, you can throw some money on the guy from China, and you can make some good dough. You never know, especially because we have seen Raul being tested. He had that loss against Christian Rodriguez. But other than that, he's also undefeated in the UFC. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights in the UFC if you count the Contender Series. And good record though, right? He has 1 KO, 1 submission, 1 KO, and then the rest are decisions. Sorry, 2 submissions. 2 submissions, 2 KOs, and the rest by decision, and then the loss by decision as well. But yeah, I think one thing for him that I've seen in the past is, just try to gain more experience. That's where he's at, and no knock on him, right? I'm very surprised though that he's the first fight on the prelims. I would imagine they would put him a little bit more down, maybe even the main card or even the last fight on the prelims. So I'm surprised he's opening the card for us, but maybe they chose it for a reason, right? They want the first fight to be a big name, big hype name. So yeah, they did just that. But yeah, for him, I think just continuing to work. Nothing wrong right now with his style. It's just a lack of experience, really. But he's not going also against the top contenders, so that's good, right? If he were to right now give him someone that's in the top 15, he'll be in a lot of trouble. Right? But overall, well-rounded, good dude, entertaining dude to watch. And I think I'm gonna give him that dub. I think I'm gonna say Raul Rosas Jr. I want to say by second round KO or TKO. That's my official prediction for that. But yeah, should be overall a good card, man. I'm very excited for this. It's something that has had a lot of hype in the last couple of weeks, months, really. Earlier on this year, the 2 cards that I was looking forward to the most was obviously UFC 300 and this one. So 300 already passed. It delivered. It was amazing. Now we have Noche UFC, right? Which should deliver as well. So yeah, not a lot of star power, especially on the prelims, but the main event, the main card should be a fucking banger and a classic, right? I'm very excited to see how they go about the production on this, because the people in there, for what Dana White has described, they are going to be playing almost like in between fights. They're going to be playing, he called them movies, but they're not movies. They're going to be playing clips, from Mexican heritage, Mexican fighting. Are they going to, one question that I have is, are they going to kind of talk about Mexican boxing? Your boy right here is Mexican, and I did grow up in Mexico watching all the greats, watching Golden Boy, watching Julio Cesar Chavez, watching Marquez, and obviously Canelo. So I'm very excited to see if they include some of those people there, or are they going to be sticking mainly with MMA people, with UFC people, right? It would be great to show like a nice little. We all know Dana White doesn't really like Golden Boy, so they might not include him there. But you cannot talk about Mexican boxing and its history and not include Golden Boy, bro. Even though he's had, his shenanigans, whatever, right? He's been one of the best boxers ever, and for sure one of the best boxers ever in Mexico. So even though I think he was born in the U.S., correct me if I'm wrong on that, but obviously he's Mexican, but I think he's Chicano. I think he was born in the U.S. So yeah, that should be an interesting. It's gonna be super interesting to see what they put on the screen. Another thing I talked about on my last episode was how I don't think they're gonna play anything during the fights themselves. They might just have like one still visual, like maybe just the tail of the fight, the tail of the tape, maybe just the stats or something. I don't know. But obviously, if they're playing something while the fight is going on, that's going to be extremely distracting for not only the fans, but the fighters. So I really doubt they do anything during the fight, but Dana White already pretty much confirmed that in between the fights, it's when we're going to get the high production value that the Sphere can offer, right? So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see how it's going to look at home. I'm excited to see if we get the same kind of experience. Obviously, it's not going to be 360, right? It's curved, unless you have a curved monitor, maybe. But we're just going to get to see the nice little clips or movies that Dana White puts together. Not Dana White, but the UFC. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it should be a fun card, man. And I'll be here to break down what happened after and to do a recap and to see if I got my predictions right. Who knows? I've been known to have some good predictions. I've been known. Okay, so again, I'm not telling you what to do with your money, but Ortega as an underdog, that's a really good fucking bet right there, right? Valentina as an underdog, that's also a good fucking bet right there. So that I'm excited for that. I can't wait. But yeah, that is all for this episode, guys. As always, don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment. Let me know if anything I just said makes sense or if I'm just yapping, right? Because I do that a lot. I tend to do that a lot. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you all, and I hope you have fun watching the fights. Please be safe, drink responsibly, bet responsibly, and as always, catch you on the next one. Peace.